Hey folks, welcome to Unqualified, the fantasy football podcast that's been researching the Pastafarians since 2017. I'm your producer, Rob Diesendorf, here with Sean Brady and Scott Johnson, two fantasy football rivals that have been sabotaging each other for years, but they decided to come together to help you win your league and make your friends look like idiots. How we doing, fellas?
I've never heard of that in my life. I don't even know what
Pastafarians?
You've never heard of the Pastafarians?
No, I'm going to look it up right now, though.
They're a cult religion.
They revolve around pasta?
They basically replaced the word God in the Bible with the flying spaghetti monster.
Oh, I've heard of that guy. That dude.
And that's about all I know.
Pastafarianism is a religion and social movement that promotes a lighthearted view of religion and opposes the teaching of intelligent design and creationism in public schools. According to adherents, Pastafarianism is a real, legitimate religion as much as any other.
Yep, it's recognized as a legitimate religion in Amsterdam, I think. It's legal. It's legally recognized as a religion in Amsterdam.
Do they have like legit churches?
I don't know.
Ooh, I'm cringing.
Go to your
right
local Italian restaurant. Maybe it's there.
This flying
they're
spaghetti
trying
monster
too
is fucking
hard.
weird
They're trying
looking.
way too hard to be funny, and that's just the least funny thing to me.
They are definitely trying really hard.
Unlike us, who are just funny.
But it is kind of funny.
Yeah, it is pretty. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. I remember the flying spaghetti monster,
insane.
but I just didn't know there was a. It's a pretty funny name too, actually.
If you guys had a cult, and this is a question from one of our listeners, if you guys had a cult, what would it be, and what would be your rules?
Oh God, it would be not
way
to
to
walk
put us on the
slowly on the
spot.
sidewalks.
Not to walk slowly on the sidewalks?
Yeah.
What about you, Sean?
I mean, I was going to save this for my own question for later, but for order number one of business is getting rid of celery. It's just a waste. The worst.
Oh, save that for later.
Yeah, that's a hot topic. That's a hot take.
Yeah, I'm a celery hater.
We have some ideas about that. Yeah,
Scott, I'm with you though. No slow walking, and anyone who walks slow gets burned at the stake.
Yep, exactly. Or just like kicked out of the cult, or that.
Right.
Yeah.
Or killed.
Or killed. Yeah. Or
yeah.
Just ask nicely to leave.
Murdered brutally.
Yeah. Or like punched in the face repeatedly.
Right.
Until they want to leave.
Yeah.
Or just like a note slipped in their mailbox at the cult station and saying, "Hey, like, we appreciate you being a member, but like you're done. Get the fuck out. You walk way too slowly."
Politely ask them to leave.
Yeah.
So anyways, today's episode is our mailbag episode. We've gotten a ton of questions from our listeners. We're super excited. All kinds of questions. And remember, anybody who's thinking about writing into the pod, you can ask any kind of question you want. Doesn't have to be football related. This is your podcast as much as it is ours. So get them coming in the DMs. Unqualified FF on Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place. And we're waiting. We're ready.
We're also open to doing another episode. So maybe like right before the season starts. This is pretty premature and early, but these are like pretty good preseason questions. We're also open to doing another one in about a month. So hint, send some questions.
Your chance to get on the pod.
Yeah, you get shouted out. It's pretty cool.
Exactly. And we need questions from you guys because sometimes Scott and I just talk about things that really, in the grand scheme of things, don't matter. Like when we debate Marshawn Lynch for hours on end, when in reality,
or Emmanuel Sanders.
Exactly. When in reality, like they're not going to be the difference makers for your team. So we're kind of relying on you guys to keep us on track and keep it light, keep it interesting.
It's time to get into the mailbag questions, the real meat of the show. Our first set of questions comes from Joe Shikoda. Okay, question number one. Do the Seattle He-Hawks... He-Hawk! Do the Seattle He-Hawks... Hey, I was wondering, do the Seattle He-Hawks take a step back? / have any fantasy value?
Well, gosh almighty, the Seattle the Seesaws, I've been meaning to talk about them folks. I think they're going to take a little step back there. Right, nice like.
Wow, you're like eerily good at that, Scott.
Me or Rob? I think Rob is better. Do you want me to talk like that the rest of the episode?
Oh,
I can
please,
do that.
Please do it.
So anyway, I think Russ Wilson is the only one that I would consider to be living up to his ADP, which means like he's going to be a QB, top 5 QB. Everyone else, Doug Baldwin kind of had an off year last year. I think he's going to be outside the wide receiver 15 discussion. Running back situation just a little funky. So I don't know, y'all.
I don't even know if I can attempt. I'm gonna be me over here.
You don't
I think it's impossible for the Seahawks to not take a step back. They have to take a step back. I mean, they've been like the class of the NFC for like the past 5 to 6 years, and everybody's gone or hurt. You know, Doug Baldwin's already hurt, but I still don't hate him this year. I think this actually could be good for their offensive players' fantasy value. I mean, last year, what was it? Just Russell Wilson and sort of Doug Baldwin. I think if Baldwin's out there, he'll be a good option, and you might be able to get him at a little bit of a discount because of this injury. So definitely monitor that. If you like to risk on that kind of thing, I personally don't. Go for Doug Baldwin. I think he could be in for a big year if he's on the field. The backfield, I'm staying away, though. I don't know about this at all. I know nothing about Rashad Penny. I don't know if you have any insight on that, Scott.
Yeah, I was going to say the opposite. So I think that, first of all, the defense is going to be worse because they lost Richard Sherman to the 49ers. They lost their strong safety Cam Chancellor to retirement. So the defense is going to be worse regardless, which means they might have to throw it a lot, but they also lost Jimmy Graham to free agency as well. Right. So Russ Wilson isn't probably going to have as many touchdown throws. I think they're going to rely on the run game. This is how I'm envisioning that team to go. They're going to rely on the run game a little bit more. And Rashad Penny, I don't really know too much about either. I know that it was a stretch for them to take him where they did in the first round, so I would temper expectations, but I would take him as like a flex or running back 2 if you're playing that no running back strategy. But do you consider Chris Carson as a handcuff there, or is that not handcuff worthy?
I think he is. I think he might possibly be standalone value worthy. Chris Carson was good last year.
Yeah, I agree. Hurt. Yeah. I think a lot of people are putting in a lot of stock into Penny, but that's funny. That was just funny how that came out of my mouth there. Chris Carson was really good, but last year though, so I think you probably have to take him. Yeah.
I think that Baldwin son of a bitch, he's been eating too many mashed and taters for dinner, and he's getting fat as hell. He's going on the bench. He won't see the field for at least 3 seasons.
Fat as
It's funny because Doug Baldwin is like the type of person that will literally rip your face off. So that's just the best part about that.
He'd probably rip it off and eat it.
He's a low-key scary man on the field. I don't know. He's a loose cannon.
All right, moving on. Who steps up for the Dolphins with their 2 main weapons gone?
All right, so obviously we can get into Kenyon Drake in a little bit. He's very polarizing this year. But just to look at the wide receiver core, we talked about Kenny Stills a lot during the season last year because he was good. He was in our Blue Chip Player of the Week at least twice, which lets you know he's the kind of guy that can win you a week. And I think we already know that Devontae Parker is just not the guy you want on your team. I've already heard reports already. And I typically don't put a lot into like training camp reports, but I've already heard that he's struggling at camp, and I'm not shocked at all. So Kenny Stills I like as a sleeper later in your fantasy draft.
Yeah, and Ryan Tannehill, who will hopefully be back this year, like at full fledged. So if you need like a late QB2, if you're in a 2 QB league, maybe Tannehill will have an up, back up year. But yeah, I think you got to consider when you're looking at Kenyon Drake, you got to consider they just got Frank Gore in free agency. So Frank Gore's old as shit, and he's gonna vulture some touchdowns in the goal line. So just know that limitation of Kenyon Drake. But I like Kenyon Drake as a running back too. He was fantastic last year in shared duties.
Yeah, I mean, Gore is probably going to scare some people off, and I've also heard some buzz about their rookie they drafted, Kalen Ballage, but
right.
I mean, I'm just going to assume he's not very good. He was just taken super late. Frank Gore is like a running corpse at this point. He's not a walking corpse. He's a running corpse at this point. So I think Drake could find himself all alone like he did last year and be very serviceable for you. Again, but I think this team might suck anyway. So there's definitely some headaches coming with any Dolphin that you own. That's definitely something you have to have in mind.
And Devontae Parker sucks.
He's the worst.
All right. And next question. Does Aaron Rodgers have a bounce back year?
I mean, he never. So like the thing with Rodgers, he was hurt obviously last year, but so if you consider him having an off year last year because he was hurt and missed so many games, yeah, I guess he would have a bounce back year. But when he was on the field, his average was about 20, 21 points each game, the 7 or 8 games he was out there, and they put him out in like week 10 or 12 when the Packers were on the fringe for the actual playoffs. And then when they lost that game after he threw 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, they shut him down for the rest of the year. But I mean, without Jordy Nelson, he might take a step back to like top 3 or 5, and maybe he'll be like 3rd or 5th. But he's still like a lights out QB1, and put him in your lineup and don't worry about him the rest of the year.
Yeah, him coming back, I'm taking every Packer I can get my hands on. Outside of Jimmy Graham, who I'm not sure how he's going to fit in there, I'll take both receivers. I'll take maybe the top 2 running backs. I'm not a big Ty Montgomery guy, but I like Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, and it's all because Aaron Rodgers is coming back. You know, seeing how the Packers turn out with him healthy is probably one of my top 5 things I'm looking forward to this year. And once, football kicks off.
What's that? Sorry, we have somebody who wants to come on the podcast. You gotta let me get in the podcast right there. This guy, this is our buddy Kenny.
Oh,
Kenny wants to chime in. Kenny, come over here, buddy.
Kenny,
come over here, buddy.
How y'all doing?
Yeah, you gotta know that Aaron Rodgers fella, he's gonna be a good one. You put him in your lineup and you're bound to have 7,000 points by the end of the season.
Jesus, 7,000, huh?
You sure about that, Kenny? Oh, yes, I know Aaron. I've known him since he was a boy. That boy, he's got talent, and he's going to take your team to the next level. All right, well, thank you, Kenny.
Thanks, Ken.
That's all we need from you, bud.
Also,
anytime.
To follow up on Kenny, our illustrious guest, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers have made pretty good progress in their extension talks, so he should stay a Packer and get paid a ton of money, which I think will make him happy and make him stay a little longer and even better.
All right. And we are moving on to the next question, which is, will Ajayi be the main running back in Philly?
I think yes. I think having Darren Sproles back is going to help him out a lot. I think the roles will be a little bit more defined than they were last year. Obviously, he joined the team, at the trade deadline last year, so he's not going to have a very defined role. But you saw him play a lot more when the games mattered most, and this guy is really, really good. I don't think he's going to have a very long career, but for right now, he's in his prime. He's on the defending Super Bowl champions, and with Carson Wentz coming back from an ACL, they might lean on the run a little bit more than they did last year. So I really like Ajayi this year. I think obviously he's not going to be an every down workhorse for the whole year, but I think his role will be significantly bigger than last year. He'll definitely be usable. He's an RB2 for me.
Yeah, I like Ajayi a lot more this year than I did last year. They had LeGarrette Blount last year on the Eagles, and he had vultured touchdowns. He was actually pretty good, LeGarrette Blount, as kind of like the 1A to Ajayi's 1B. So now that he's gone, I think Ajayi will be the first and second down back, but and Sproles will be out there on third down and long passing plays. But I don't think I think you need to. I don't think you can undersell the value that Corey Clement has on that team. The only reason they kept him last year in that logjam that they had at running back was because he was good on special teams. So he's a very versatile player. But Corey Clement scored 2 touchdowns in multiple games last year. I think you're going to get the Ajayi in between how he was with the Dolphins with 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns compared to how he was last year with like 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. You're going to get something in the middle, but I don't think you're going to get a workhorse running back too. I think he's more of a flex guy, so he's getting drafted a little too early for my liking because of that logjam.
All right, next question. Who is the running back to own in New England?
Yeah, so, sorry, how do you pronounce this guy's name? Because I feel like I've butchered it the past 2 episodes.
I think it's Sony. Like, it's spelled like the,
Like the company?
Yeah, so I think it's Sony Michel. I'm pretty sure.
Michelle? Anyone has any feedback on that, let us know. Because
all right, so I'll settle for you. Take Sony, like your PlayStation company, and then add on the huge dodgeball behemoth from the movie Dodgeball. White Goodman's number 2, Michelle. So it's Sony Michelle. There you go. Perfect.
Are you sure? Because I've said it wrong every single time. So I said Sonny Mitchell.
Yeah, I actually wasn't positive, but I'm pretty sure it's Sony Michelle.
I'm looking up the pronunciation right now, and I can't really hear it, but whatever. Anyone give us feedback on that. But regardless, that's the guy to own in New England. But what you have to look out for is check how many fumbles he had last year and the year before in college. I don't think he had too many at Georgia. But Bill Belichick has a tendency to put running backs that fumble a lot or turn the ball over in the doghouse. So I can easily see a scenario where Rex Burkhead or James White is the bell cow back when Sony Michel fumbles the ball or gives it up on something like that, or drops a pass on third down and prevents them from scoring a field goal or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, I personally was burned by the New England backfield last year. I was really high on Mike Gillislee because he was awesome the year before in Buffalo. And then obviously we all know how that turned out. So there is a possibility that this is just like a full-blown like 3-man committee here. But I think it's kind of hard to overlook that the tendency Belichick has to kind of like almost weirdly copy what New Orleans is doing. So they last year went and traded their first-round draft pick for Brandon Cooks, right, who was coming obviously from New Orleans, and used him in much the same way the Saints used him. And then now they're drafting the guy that is getting compared probably the most commonly to Alvin Kamara coming out of Georgia. I mean, yeah, the upside is definitely there. Just watching him, I don't watch a ton of college football, but I watched Georgia because they were obviously in huge games last year. This guy is electric. He's out of this world. And as long as he can stay on the field, as long as he's not fumbling the ball like you mentioned, the upside is certainly there. And he's not going too early for me. He's lumped in with all the running back rookies that we just mentioned. You know, we talked about Rashad Penny, right? And, you know, obviously, if you have the choice between those two, I'm taking Sony Michel all day, just based on the upside. And again, he's in an elite offense, so why not?
So I think another thing you have to consider. So I'm looking at his fumbles. He only had 2 fumbles last year at Georgia, 1 for a loss, and then the year before was 3 fumbles and 1 for a loss. But he doesn't really catch the ball too much. That's going to be James White and Rex Burkhead. So if you're in a PPR league, I think you got to temper expectations. I would rather have like a Rashad Penny at that point. But rushing wise and in a standard league, I would rather have Michelle than like a J.J. we just discussed, or a like a Rashad Penny.
Oh no, I'm taking Michelle over Penny no matter what. No matter what, even in PPR. That's going to be our first face-off, I think, right here.
All right. Fair enough.
As much as I hate the Patriots.
And our next question, buying or selling Joe Mixon?
I'll take the lead on this one. I don't know. We kind of like were very unenthused last year with Joe Mixon. He had a lot of hype coming out of college. Very underwhelming last year. I will say that as long as the Bengals regress to the mean, which is like they're, you know, a mediocre team, not like a bottom dweller like they kind of were last year. If they regress to mediocrity and they kind of regress upwards, Joe Mixon could be a huge part of that. You know, for me, he's more of like a rock solid RB2 than Ajayi, just because his role is just him and Giovanni Bernard. And Giovanni Bernard is more of like your like gadget guy. He's not going to play. Maybe he'll play third downs, but Joe Mixon can catch the ball too. So, you know, I can easily see him winning that job and being an RB2. But again, he was a headache to own last year, so I'm not going crazy for him.
Yeah, off the field shit aside, he's a shithead off the field. That's why he got drafted so late, rightfully so, and it's amazing that he got drafted in his own team, regardless of what he's done. But he's 24 years old. 22 years old. He's not even in his prime yet, but I think he's primed for a breakout. So you don't have Jeremy Hill anymore, who is log jamming carries from the beginning of the year on. Giovanni Bernard is a good third down back, but Joe Mixon catches the ball a ton. I think he had like 30 catches last year or something like that. And now that they have John Ross, who was their first round pick, the wide receiver last year, back on the field, he's a field stretcher. They should hopefully be able to, again, regress to the mean, maybe be like an 8-8 mediocre team instead of what they were last year. John Ross will stretch the field. That'll open up more running lanes for Joe Mixon to hopefully take that second year, leap.
All right, and we're going to move on to the next question, which is this Derrick Henry's breakout year?
I don't. It's so tough because he's technically a starter, but they got Dion Lewis in the offseason, it's kind of like thunder and lightning. Like Derrick Henry's the thunder to Dion Lewis is lightning. I would say it's his breakout year, but if he has one or two bad weeks, I think the move that they got for Dion Lewis was better for the team overall than it is for fantasy purposes, because now they're going to be splitting carries. Dion Lewis has proven that he can take over for anyone, and like he did for New England last year and the year before. He was fantastic when all three of their other running backs were brutal. So I think it might be his breakout year, but I am staying away from that backfield for now.
Yes,
in drafts.
I'm with you. Yeah, like people are drafting both these guys like highly, like in their starter level, like as a flex or as a low end RB2. No, this is not the Atlanta Falcons backfield. They don't have Kyle Shanahan calling plays for them. You know, obviously, if one of them gets hurt, I love the other one. I think were one of them to go down, you're looking at like a low end RB1. But
yeah, I agree with that.
You know, but they're both going to be on the field, and as long as they're both on the field, I don't think you're getting more than like high end flex output from these guys, because again, just that committee is going to be a real thing, and I don't think that Tennessee's offense proved anything last year, showing that they can, you know, carry two running backs that are fantasy worthy. I don't think so. I'm staying away, just like you, from this backfield. Maybe I'll take a flyer if one of them slips a little too far, and then just pray for an injury to the other guy.
Yeah, and also you got to consider Marcus Mariota rushes it a lot too, so he's going to take some carries away. There's a funny meme on Instagram it's not a meme, it's like a picture from the NFL Instagram page that we're if we haven't like repurposed for us, so we will on our Unqualified FF page, but it's a picture of Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis standing next to each other, and it's like polar opposites. And the caption was like, "These guys play the same position." I couldn't be any different, like a foot apart.
All right, and looks like we've got a couple of QB questions here as well. Are you guys ready for those?
Sure, throw them at us.
Okay. Does Case Keenum make Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders relevant again?
I'm gonna say no. I'm out on Denver's offense in general. Royce Freeman's a little bit intriguing for me, but I just, you know, Case Keenum was awesome last year. Don't get me wrong. Demaryius Thomas is getting up there in age. He's definitely lost a step. He's still going to be a big body. He's going to catch touchdowns, but he's not going to give you your week-to-week production that you're kind of expecting where he's getting drafted right now in like the 4th round. And then I don't need to add anything to our Emmanuel Sanders takes because, you know, yeah, he's got a marginally better quarterback. Does not change the fact that I'm not taking him.
Yeah, I'm not even going to talk about Emmanuel Sanders, which who I think Rob took in the mock draft episode, but I'm going to rebut a little bit with Demaryius Thomas because, so if you look at his stats, he's had 1,000 yards at least. And so last year he had 949 yards receiving, and that was with probably one of the shittiest quarterback situations in the NFL. Yeah. So he had 949 yards, 5 touchdowns, pretty close to 1,000 yards, but not there. We get it. And he was like right outside the top 20 or something like that. So I agree he's getting drafted too early. But if you look at 2012 to 2016, those 5 years, he had at least 1,083 yards and at least 5 touchdowns. And that was just counting 2016 when he had 1,083 and 5. So before that, he was at 1,300 yards, 6 to 10 touchdowns every year. I think realistically, he's going to be at like 1,000 or 1,100 yards and like 6 touchdowns. I think Case Keenum will give him more relevance, kind of like an Adam Thielen kind of thing.
That's bold. Adam Thielen was lights out last year. I don't. Well, let me put it this way. I don't think Demaryius Thomas will be unusable. I just think he's going way too high right now. He's going with the likes of Stephon Diggs and Allen Robinson. Those guys have such a high ceiling compared to Demaryius that I'm not even thinking about him in the 4th round.
I mean, I'd rather have Allen Robinson, but I would over Demaryius Thomas. But I'd rather have Demaryius Thomas over Stephon Diggs. I think Stephon Diggs is getting drafted way too early.
I'm a big Diggs guy this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he hasn't broken 1,000 yards yet. He hasn't proven he could stay healthy. I'd rather have Demaryius Thomas, who's like steady Eddie kind of guy.
Steady Eddie. All right. Well, does Patrick Mahomes elevate all the positional players in Kansas City?
I think he keeps them. Yeah, I think he keeps them the same where they were last year. I think having Sammy Watkins is going to stretch the field. We just don't know enough about Patrick Mahomes. I think you could take a flyer on him if you're into if you take a to talk about steady eddies, take like Matt Stafford as your QB1, take Patrick Mahomes in like round 14 before your kicker and defense. There's just not enough tape on him to know he has a good deep arm. He runs it a lot, but like Sammy Watkins won't have any value. I think Tyreek Hill will have as much, if not a little less value than he did last year, like 1,200 yards, 5 touchdowns. Kareem Hunt, they might do some cool things with Kareem Hunt and Patrick Mahomes, so he might do just as well as last year, but I don't think he changes much.
Yeah, like there's nowhere to really elevate to. If you're in a PPR league, you had like a top 5 receiver in Tyreek Hill, a top 5 running back in Kareem Hunt, a top 5 tight end in Travis Kelce. Like there's nowhere to elevate to. They're not all going to be number 1 in their position groups. I think they'll be kind of what you said, around the same. I think my biggest thing, I think Hill will get he's just the kind of player that they'll get him the ball. The biggest thing I want to keep an eye on is Kelce. Kelce could wind up really elevating to that number 1 spot, or he could take a little bit of a drop off just based on the rapport that he's losing with his quarterback. So Kelce is the question mark for me there, not in a bad way. I think he's still a top 3 tight end regardless, but Mahomes makes it a little iffy whether I'd rather have him over Gronk, which I normally would now at this point in their careers. So it's it's something to keep an eye on.
All right. We got one more. We're going to close this thing up here. Who will have better value out of Stephon Diggs / Adam Thielen with Cousins now at the helm? What, are you guys laughing at my pronunciation?
Just it's Thielen.
Yeah, well,
no, that's okay. It's just one.
Give me
a
break.
One name.
Give me a break.
Thielen.
Okay.
Sorry. I like both these guys. I think they're both top 20 guys. Diggs obviously is getting drafted in the 4th. Thielen in the 3rd. You're paying a premium for them, but Kirk Cousins, supported 3,000-yard receivers 2 years ago in Washington, and none of those guys were as talented as either guy listed here. I think, as again Scott mentioned, Diggs' injury history. If this guy's on the field, he was like a top 5 wide receiver at the start of the year last year. Obviously trailed off, got hurt a little bit, but he's a gamer. He just got a huge contract. I really like Diggs this year, and I think Thielen. We said it last year. Like, I can't wait for this guy to get like slept on just because he's white. This guy's so good. I don't get how I think he's a top of that 3rd round, not really in the middle or the end, which he's kind of getting drafted at.
Yeah, I'd rather have Thielen. If you look at Kirk Cousins and who he historically throws to, it's tight ends a lot, and it's slot guys a lot. He doesn't really throw it like too deep because he doesn't have the best deep accuracy. And that's another whole segment or question is like, will Kirk Cousins do as well with the Vikings? He definitely has better positional players than he did with the Redskins, but I don't think he's going to like blow it out. I think he'll be like top 10, but like 9 or 10. But I would rather have Adam Thielen than Stephon Diggs. If you look at like who Kirk Cousins throws it to, I think he's going to throw it a ton to Kyle Rudolph. I think Kyle Rudolph's going to have a great year as the Vikings tight end. But I think Thielen in the slot or like kind of a safety valve is going to have a lot more. I think he's on line for 1,200 yards and like 8 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs, he'll probably get hurt again, and I just don't think Kirk Cousins can get him the ball deep where he thrives.
Yeah, and last thing on Thielen, he's another one that if he regresses to the mean, like his touchdowns were super low last year. I think he had like 3, and he's just a target monster, yardage machine. He's going to score more than 3 touchdowns with Kirk throwing him the ball. So I'm taking him all day in the 3rd round. I think he's again getting slept on. He was a top 10 receiver last year. People, could we treat him like that, please? Come on.
Please do it.
Come on,
people.
Dude, shout out to Joe real quick. This guy just fills our mailbag with questions.
You're the man.
They're all good.
Oh,
big fan.
Always such a big fan. Thanks for the questions as always.
Okay, we're going to take a little intermission here because the rant is due. It's time to get mad about stuff.
I'm fuming right now.
Oh boy, we are mad. I'm so ready.
Okay, guys, can we just agree as a society to get rid of celery forever? Like, I know what you're going to say. Oh, you burn more calories eating it than you do getting from it, so it helps you lose weight. No, it just tastes awful. It's just, at best, it's a vehicle for blue cheese or whatever you're having with your wings. If you're a ranch guy, whatever.
Ranch.
That's fine.
Ranch all day.
You can't. It's just like the worst vegetable. You put it in a salad, ruins the salad. Like, the only possible use for it is a vehicle for some kind of dip. And even then, it's like, it ruins the taste of the dip.
Or peanut butter. It's weird to put peanut butter on a vegetable.
Oh.
It's like, why are you going to do that?
I don't know. I think, if you're eating it with wings, great. Go for it. But there's this, like, weird thing with celery, like, when it, like, wilts and it gets, like, brown on the edges. You know what I mean? And it's like it's a weird way to describe it. It's like sour almost, and it tastes like even grosser than it does normally when it's like ripe. Yeah, it's weird. It's like very
ripe celery.
No,
ripe celery. Yeah, it's like a very small.
That's an oxymoron right there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's it's good, but you know what I mean with ripe.
It's weird to even think about celery as being ripe.
Does that mean like when it's all stringy and gets stuck in your teeth?
Gross.
That's the ripeness.
It uses fucking floss.
No,
that's the best case scenario. That's the best case scenario.
Celery just exists in one state. It just exists in celery form.
Is it just like water? Or what is it?
It's just fibers and water in between the fibers.
Actually.
I'm like cringing just thinking about it.
It has nothing. It's negative calories. Negative.
Also,
taste,
it's so loud and
negative
annoying when you're chewing
overall.
it too.
Oh yeah,
like you need to be.
Yeah, it ruined my lunch today.
Really? You need
really
to be at like a bar when you're eating wings and it's loud and there's music playing and you're all doing the same thing.
It's not even a real food. And you know what else isn't a real food? American cheese.
Nice segue, bro.
Americans came into the cheese market and they were like, "Oh, let's take a look at what we got here. Okay, all these naturally occurring bacteria and this dairy. Okay,
cultures. Why
don't we just completely synthesize it? Let us get our American fingers on it and turn it into some kind of Frankenstein treat." Have you ever read the side of an American cheese package? It says cheese product.
That's disgusting.
That's how you know it's not real. Like, if you have to call it a cheese product, that's like capitalism at its best.
Cheese
right
whiz.
there.
I'm just laughing at you calling it, like saying they designed it as like a treat. Like that, in no way were they. No way. They were designing it for one purpose only, and that's to melt faster than actual cheeses. So, like, if you're not putting this on a burger or grilled cheese, I will straight up fight you because you're just a rubber eater. You're a yellow rubber eater.
They designed it for one purpose and one purpose only, and that was it to outlast the apocalypse and cockroaches.
Yeah, honestly, that's like what McDonald's puts on their burgers, and I feel like I've seen weird. Like I don't know if I've seen it or remember it, but I've seen like too many pictures of like, oh, this McDonald's burger has lasted 6 months and it's still in the same state, and like the cheese is just as fine, and it looks like that glossy look that American cheese has. That just grosses me out. It looks like it's wet, but it's not really wet. It's just glossy.
Yes, yeah, sir. American cheese is like shiny too. It's
that's what I'm saying.
It like literally looks like somebody like melted orange plastic and then turned it into a square.
Do you imagine melted American cheese on celery, wilted celery? Ew, gross.
God,
oh my god.
Yeah, so Kraft sponsor us.
Hey, Kraft.
Yeah, Kraft sponsor us.
What's a good like celery company? Is there any celery companies? Like Green Giant?
No.
Celery, big
There's
celery.
No such thing as a good celery.
We're really going to get in trouble with big celery, guys.
Big celery
They're
guys.
coming after us.
What are you guys putting? What are the condiments that you put on a hot dog? This grinds my gears. The more and more I see goops of like ketchup on it, the way I see it, if you're not putting a tiny bit of sauerkraut and just straight up mustard on your hot dog, you're not eating it right.
Oh my god.
I'm a triple threat guy.
I can't even believe you're saying this right now.
Yeah, I'm a relish.
Sauerkraut?
Sauerkraut's good.
You're a fucking lunatic.
Okay, cool, man. We just agreed on all the other fucking rants.
No. Nope. Not for me.
A little weird that you just call me a fucking sociopath, but okay.
I'm not doing that.
Well, then don't do it. I'm just getting on my... This is my segment. You don't have to agree with it, but doing sauerkraut and mustard. I'm not saying you're loading up with sauerkraut. You're just putting a little bit.
Defending himself now. Now he's all up in arms defending himself.
Yeah, we're done.
He's wrong.
No, I'm actually not. But okay,
sauerkraut is terrible. What else do you put sauerkraut on?
I'm not answering that question.
You're not gonna. So what about just ketchup and mustard?
You don't put sauerkraut on anything else. That's the fucking point. It's only for hot dogs.
You're forgetting about the relish. Ketchup, mustard, relish. Gotta have the relish on there. Triple threat.
Any of those like relishy sauerkraut, like just mashed up like green stuff in liquids? Like, nope, not doing it. Sorry, bud.
Well, all right,
it's not
bro.
happening.
All right, pal. What are you putting on your fucking hot dog?
What am I putting on my hot dog? I'm putting ketchup, or I'm putting ketchup and mustard. I'm not putting mustard by itself for sure, but I'm putting either ketchup or ketchup and mustard. If you're eating mustard solo, you've definitely killed people.
Yeah,
it's an interesting take.
Listeners, if you could see Scott's face right now, he is disgusted with Rob. Oh my god.
Yeah, we should just move on.
I agree.
Yeah, we should move on because this conversation's over.
Thanks for listening to my rant, even though you just shot it down completely, and I was very open and nice with yours. But
I'm not willing to be open-minded about sauerkraut.
Actually, you know what? Yeah, fuck you. I love American cheese, actually. So
green fleshy vegetables in salty, briny liquids. That is just not
honestly
happening.
Sounds amazing.
That's not what I said.
Great.
I said sauerkraut. I'm not saying. I'd never said relish. I
Stop
literally never
trying to
said
make it
describing
happen.
a pickle.
It's not a green liquid
What's wrong with pickles?
that I said I put on it. I've never ever said that, but okay.
Stop trying to make it happen. It's not happening.
I am not.
Finn. Okay, and we are back to these questions. It's back to the mailbag. First question comes in, John Madelone. How does draft strategy change if you are in a 10-person, 2QB league, full point PPR?
This is a tough one because I've actually never been in a 2-quarterback league. That's really what you're asking here is how does your strategy change when you have to start 2 quarterbacks? I'd say for me, not much. I think there's plenty of good quarterbacks this year. The 10 through 20 range is super deep. There's guys that could end up in like the top 5 in certain situations in that, obviously we just talked about Pat Mahomes. If he has a Carson Wentz type breakout, he's a top 5 quarterback this year. I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, but it's possible. It's within his like range of outcomes is a big buzzword this year in fantasy. So I would say make sure you take 3. Look at like a Alex Smith, maybe a Ryan Tannehill as like your third, maybe a Case Keenum as like your third option, and then just get two decent starters. You don't need to go and reach for Aaron Rodgers because you don't want to forget about those, very important running back wide receiver positions. So I wouldn't change too much. That's my, long way of saying business as usual.
Yeah, so like full point PPR, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage if you're taking a QB like the 10th overall QB too early because other people are rushing to get a QB. So in other words, like if you're not going to take like a Adam Thielen like we were just talking about or a top wide receiver instead you're going to take like a Matthew Stafford like way too early, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage like from the get-go. Same with pass catching running backs if it's full point PPR. Even if it's not, you should be taking positional players still. And I know I said in this draft strategy, you're taking like the top 6 rounds. I usually do running backs and wide receivers. Maybe you do like top 4 or 5, and then you start taking quarterbacks. But I think 3 is a good number. If you look at like guys that were drafted pretty early last year that have fallen completely off of draft boards, Marcus Mariota, Case Keenum, like you just mentioned, Ryan Tannehill, these are all guys that can be good bye-week fill-ins for your, Matthew Stafford QB1 and then Pat Mahomes QB2. Like I'd be fine with that because then you have like pretty good floor and base and you have some upside to deal with, and your positional players are going to be that much better than the other teams.
All right. Next question comes from Ryan Brady. Every year there seems to be rookies who break out like Kamara in 17 and OBJ in 14. Who are your bold predictions for breakout rookies no one is talking about?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big qualifiers, the ones that no one's talking about. Like, for this year, I feel like since those guys broke out last year, like a ton of rookies broke out last year, everyone's talking about who's going to be the next Kamara, like who's going to be the next this. Like, so all these rookies are getting talked about. So I'll just say in general, I really like Sony Michel, just upside-wise. I don't like the floor at all. I think he could be a bust also. My big rookie, though, is Darius Geis. I think he's going to be outstanding in Washington. I think he's getting underlooked, and I'm more than happy with him as my RB2 heading into the year.
Yeah, so my rookies are going to be Christian Kirk on Arizona. I think the scheme fit in Arizona is fantastic, and regardless if it's Sam Bradford or Josh Rosen throwing them the ball, hopefully Josh Rosen towards the end because he has a better arm. I like Christian Kirk a lot because Larry Fitzgerald is the one guy there, and that's kind of it on that team. So Christian Kirk in Arizona, I like him as a late round flyer. I also really like. So I'm a Marlon Mack guy this year in Indianapolis, but he came off a pretty significant injury. So I like Jordan Wilkins, the rookie running back on the Colts. I think they're gonna get back to the running game with Andrew Luck in the fold. They're gonna kind of ease him in, and I think Jordan Wilkins, he's like barely getting drafted. I think he can have actually some value and maybe even like home run hitting ability.
All right, and next question. Is it worth it to use a 3rd or 4th round pick on a tight end, such as Kelsey or Ertz, or is it better to wait until the later rounds?
Yeah, I think tight end is so thin this year, so I'm not too afraid to wait until the 4th round to pick like Kelsey, like you had mentioned, or Zach Ertz. I really like Zach Ertz this year, and I think the addition of the tight end rookie in the 2nd round is only going to help him. It's going to take some pressure off of him and open up some passing lanes. I think 4th round is a good round to pick tight end. I wouldn't go 3rd.
Yeah, I think if you're not going to get one of the big 3, it's just not even worth it. This is going to be like sacrilege. I'd almost rather take Jordan Reed later than like reach for a guy that I take too early. And obviously pair him with a guy that's going to be on the field all the time.
Right.
But if you're asking me if I'm going to reach for Jimmy Graham in the 4th round, absolutely not. I'd rather take Jordan Reed and just assume he's going to be out the whole year, than take Jimmy Graham too early. I think obviously you're getting Kelsey or Ertz or even Gronk in the late 3rd in the 4th. That's fine. But if not, try to grab like a Kyle Rudolph later. But I do think if there's a year to reach for a tight end, one of those top 3, it's this year because it's super thin, once you drop off after that 3rd guy.
All right, and that question comes from Connor Brady. Next question, Andrew Mormon. Do free agents Chris Faumau-Tumaflalia, that's not even a real name. That was obviously planted
No, I think
there.
it is.
That was obviously planted to make me screw that up. Chris Faumatu,
oh my God,
Faumatu, or Mafala, or TJ Houshman. This is not real.
Butcher it as badly as you are right now.
Dude, that's real. He was
that's a real name. TJ
no.
Houshmandzadeh.
Houshmandzadeh, who's your daddy? Have a chance. They're making me read the teleprompter. Have a chance at making an NFL roster this year.
No.
Does that even make sense?
I'm going to say no.
That question made no sense.
Do your free agents, Chris from blah 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 and Hazem Shimada, have a chance at making the NFL roster this year?
Definitely.
I think that question was planted just to hear you read the names, and well done, Andrew Mormon. Well played.
That was definitely planted. All right, well, let's just move on.
Yeah, good idea.
Next question comes from Chris McKnight. Are Le'Veon Bell and Julio Jones going to suck the first few weeks of regular season because they are skipping camp?
I think Le'Veon Bell is going to be out of there by the end of this year. So, and he always kind of does this. He does this pretty consistently. He skips camp. And then he does fine. Julio, it's kind of a weird restructuring. They didn't come to they restructured his deal, and he said he's going to be a Falcon, but I think he might be out of there by the end of this year or like next year. So I think that's kind of on his mind. That's noteworthy enough, like newsworthy enough for it to be out there that he restructured his deal. I think it's probably because they paid Matt Ryan so much, and they don't have that much cap space, so they had to restructure it. But I would be on the lookout for Julio. I don't think it's going to hinder him too much. I think he's still a top 5 wide receiver. Bell is still top 5 running back because they just have so much volume and talent.
Yeah, this is just noise. Le'Veon Bell, actually, I personally think that he does this more so that he can keep himself fresh than it is for him realistically thinking he's going to get every contract demand met. I think he just says, you know what, I will kind of want to sit out camp anyway, so I might as well, use this as like my route to do it. It's kind of a killing 2 birds with 1 stone thing for him, and I think he's going to be awesome this year. I think I love Gurley. Todd Gurley will always have a place in my heart as my, we always had 2017, but Le'Veon Bell is probably going to end the year as the number 1 running back this year.
I'll put money on Gurley over Bell.
Oh, I can't bet against Gurley, so never mind. But I love Bell this year. I think they're going to run him into the ground.
Yeah, and our final question comes from Alex Koenig. Is logging into the league manager's account to approve your own trade really cheating?
Oh, no comment.
Really?
This may or may not have happened.
No, I don't know. I wasn't in the league at that time, so I can't give a comment. But it sounds suspicious.
It's clearly cheating. Clearly cheating. That's all I'm going to say.
Interesting.
Sounds like somebody needs to get called out.
People don't forget, Alex. People don't forget.
People don't forget.
All right, and that wraps it up for the mailbag episode.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, we are waiting for your questions. It's your pod as much as it is ours. We love hearing from you guys. So hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up in the DMs on Instagram. Email us. Run over to our houses or our apartments and yell through our windows. Throw little rocks up against our windows at night, and then come with a boombox and record your question in advance, and then play it through the boombox.
That'd be awesome.
Just any questions you guys have, any rants you may want to debate. We had somebody actually that we were supposed to call out on this episode. They DM'd us about grapes, and they said that green grapes are better than red grapes, which
Blasphemy.
is absolute horse shit.
That's disgusting.
And that's coming up on the next episode. We're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be
they need to be put in their
out.
place. Oh my god!
Because
Sacrilege.
First of all, it's just unacceptable. Basically,
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That's unacceptable. But you can send us stuff like that. And when you write to us, pretend we're like a friend. Right, like you're writing a letter. Dear,
you're about to say love
Sean,
letter.
Rob, and Scott. Dear Rob, Sean, and Scott. Obviously, my name comes first.
Mine's
love
last.
you guys. Love the pod. You guys are all really handsome. That sort of thing. Lead off with something like that.
Please do. Yeah.
That's a good. That's
Stroke
a good
our
lead
egos
in.
a little bit.
Anyways, we do this every week. We can't wait to hear from more of you, and stay active in the channels.
Oh, get in those channels.
Wow, that was cool.
Get in
with
the
your
channel.
content.
Stay
Get
active in the channels. I'm gonna get that on a T-shirt. That is.
Oh my god, that should be our hashtag.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Stay active in the channels. That's fucking badass. I like that a lot. Wow. Well, see you in the channels.
Well, see you later.
See you in the channels. Well, see you later.